okay, so you remember the first time you ever drank a beer? Did you go, oh, this is awesome? Or if you drank coffee, was this awesome? But if you're talking to the same individuals today, they go, oh, I really love the taste of beer, I really love the taste of coffee. Well, it's the same thing that's true of a lot of different products. So when you first take Xendurance, you're like, okay, well, where's the flavoring? Because you think it should be that way. And so, but after the second, third, fourth time you take it, you're like, you get the flavoring, you're starting to taste the flavor. It becomes negligible because you realize pure, clear products don't have the sweeteners, they don't have that aftertaste. They have none of those. But if you do add things like sucralose and glucose and artificial sweeteners and even regular sweeteners, fructose, you have that little aftertaste. And to me, the other part about that is that starts to ultimately become part of the ingestion, or should say the performance side of stuff, where you can it affects the measurement side of what you're trying to accomplish. And I don't know that there's enough information where as you probably are aware, you're taking a product and you know it does this, and now you've added sugar. So how much is it what we're putting in it, or is it the sugar? Right. And how much is that a placebo effect at that point because it is sugar, or it's too much caffeine, or I'm actually really feeling benefit from the actual whatever the target part of the body or of the performance we're after. That makes a huge difference for me. And I think having had a pharmacology background, chemistry background, the one thing about Xendurance is like it hits all the marks for me. It's like, okay, well they've gotten rid of this, they've gotten rid of this, they've gotten rid of this. So they're really focusing on not affecting specifics within the body, and not just one or two, but multiples at the same time. And that makes another big, huge performance difference. So when I've talked in the past to other people that are involved with Xendurance, like when I was talking to Sandy and talking to Robin and talking to Jason, I said, why is it that people want to distinguish a certain specific part of the body from the rest of the body? Because they're all tied. Choline's throughout the entire body. So it's going to affect multiple areas of your performance, multiple areas of your recovery, multiple parts of your performance recovery. And I don't think that's a hard concept when you think about it. But I will tell you from a medical perspective, having dealt with physicians over the last 40 years, that there is a clear distinction in so much of it that when you talk to a physician, say like mental health, for instance, you talk about anything from the neck and above and the neck and below. Neck and below, it's physiologic. Neck and above, it's in your head. And at the same time, I tell people, well, I can give you things that will allow you to feel a specific way. There's a drug called reserpine. I can give you reserpine and you're going to feel depressed. Even though you're not, I can make you feel depressed. So if you think about it from a performance perspective, you sit back and say, well, I can do things and give you things that are going to cross the blood-brain barrier to help you for acuity, for focus, that are going to affect the neurochemicals within your brain. So that's no different than any other organ in your body. I mean, it makes perfect sense.
Right.
So, but it's the stumbling blocks. It's the hurdles. It's the fact that there's so many products that are on the market, like you were referring to earlier, that just don't really overpromise and underdeliver. Until you actually take this product. So in my case, Anna and I are into cycling. She has a landscaping business, and we do a lot of landscaping, especially in the summer, because she teaches during the school year, and then we take the time in the summer, and she loves doing it, so I help her in that process, and it's very successful. But as you can well imagine, a lot of it's hands-on. We're not the kind of people that like sit on a tractor. We're like in the dirt, planting plants, those types of things. So when we were doing those things, and years passed until I took Xendurance, I'd feel it. Like I would the next day. So I know it sounds really crazy probably for most people, but the science backs it. I think that's for me as a scientist, to sit back and go, okay, there's a reason why I feel better now than I did in the past. So I see that in the performance as it relates to working out and working and doing landscaping. But what happened with me is I took a competitive product, for lack of a better way of putting it, and I would typically take that, but it was very caffeine loaded, and which helped me because I'm one of those unusual people that I get up at 3:30 in the morning and go to the gym.
That is unusual.
So, and I love that because I get to the gym, and I would say I'm a kind of a gym rat. So I go into the gym, and when I go into the gym, by the time I get, and I'll ride for an hour, and I ride very aggressively. I do, spin, I should say, not necessarily spin, but I like really, really ride. And so I was riding, I've been doing it for years, and when the weather's nice out, right outdoors. So I go and I work out, and I ride, and then I do core, and then I lift. And I was never a lifter until this year. So I was always a skinny little runner. So I ran out of product. And by this time, Anna had worked with Drew Diddleman, and Drew Diddleman said, hey, I've got this product. I think it will work for you, help enhance what you're doing, what you've been doing. And Anna had always struggled. She was really didn't see the progresses that you typically see. She tried lots of different things. So it always makes me leery. I'm like, oh, you've tried everything. It's not working. So now you're going to give me another product that's not going to work. I don't know about that. So I come from old school, which is I grew up in a time frame when you drank water. About the only thing you would ever put in your body was Gatorade. Mm-hmm. You didn't do anything else. There was no like, hey, let's take some protein pills or calcium pills or nothing. We literally ran on just pure training. We didn't even think about sleep. We didn't think about what we ate. I mean, I don't know about you, but I will tell you at the time frame, my mentor was a guy by the name of Glenn Binky, who won the national championships at 6 miles in 1973. When there was no division, and Glenn drank Coke.
Yeah.
By the cases, he would like literally drink 4 or 5 Cokes a day, and he ate peanut butter and jelly. That was his diet, and so I kind of mimicked that, and that's what I did. I literally went through 2 cases of Coke a week, but I was running, 100 miles, 150 miles a week, which is that's a lot of training. It's a lot. I was a typical guy that was so driven that I really wanted to perform, so I was overtraining religiously. Like, okay, I just, I can't run just, 6 miles in the morning. I need to run 9 miles in the morning. So having said that, I kind of knew, I always had this leeriness about it. And being a chemist, you're even more leery about it because everybody just makes claims right and left. And I'm about the double-blind randomized study test with 55,000, people or participants in the study. Which is not necessarily always, it's not possible. And there are lots of studies that don't have that volume in it. But having said that, I ran out of product. So she had Focus, she had Fuel 5 Plus sitting in a bag. So she had talked about it, and I said, I'm going to try this. I didn't have anything else to do, so I scooped it in. That's the first thing I do in the morning. And I shook it up, drank it, and I went to the gym. I get to the gym, I'm like, man, I just felt different. I felt like, okay, I can ride, and went, rode. It's like, and I ride pretty fast. I mean, typically my training rides are between 21 and 23 miles an hour for an hour. So, which is moving on a bicycle. And then I go to core and I do lift. And I didn't feel like I was really working all that hard, but you have a feedback as you're riding a bike. You're looking at your RPMs, you're looking at your work effort load, and you're like, oh, wait, this isn't. I'm not feeling like I normally would think on a Monday. So then finally, I kept taking it, and I wasn't telling her. So then Friday, I decided, okay, after I got through with the 1 hour ride, I said, I'm gonna do a test. I want to see how this feels. So I started to spin, and I've always been a good sprinter on a bicycle. So I said, I'm gonna see how fast I can go. So when I did it, I was spinning I did it for a whole entire minute. I'd spun 183 RPMs, which is flat out flying. The more interesting is that's faster than any point when I was racing, sprinting. So I said, okay, something's weird. And when I got to that point at the very end of the minute, I was like, okay, I really feel like I was a little scared. I'll be honest. I was like going, okay, am I gonna have a heart attack? Because this is too easy. This is like, I don't feel this. I should be feeling this. I should be really, really tired. And it wasn't. So now it's been a little bit about 5 weeks ago, I did a second test. I did it again, and I spun it again, and I was at 193. So that's just mind-boggling. And I have friends that are in the cycling community and people I see in the gym that are going, you look like it's a blur. I go, I know. I don't get it. I just literally don't. I could never imagine this. I could never imagine being able to ride at that level. And also the recovery part, like I don't feel it the next day. I just don't feel that. If you're riding that hard, you're normally going to have a lactic acid buildup. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel lethargic. I'm not having that. Obviously, I want to not do muscle damage.
Right.
You don't want to be so sore because you can overtrain. But at the same time, it just allows you, if you just follow a regimen from a training perspective, to get better. You're able to do specific things that like stretching and core strength stuff. Because I'm a big proponent of that part of it. That you're able to do that, because you can well imagine if you're really super sore, if you have lactic acid buildup, even to doing the stretching part of it. Because once again, back in the day, no one stretched. It wasn't like there was a big, you had the track hurdle stretch, and you did a little, touch your toes kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But most cyclists have the worst backs, just like runners. We have the strongest back muscles, have the weakest stomach muscles, and we can't touch our toes. And unless you're a hurdler or a high jumper or something, typically a distance runner are not the most flexible guys on the planet. So, and cycling is the same way. So when I did it, I was like, okay, this is good. I am recovering really, really well. So I did it again, and I'm hooked. I'm just like really, really cognizant of the research that's been done on the product as it relates to what it's doing. And now that I've actually used it, I'm going, it's doing exactly what it said it was going to do. You can't ask for any more than that. You can't, as an athlete, or even an individual who's just getting out there, wants to be healthy. And I think the thing that we see in general is people talk about healthy, and I don't want to be healthy, I want to be fit. So everybody, being in medicine, the benchmark has always been 120/80 for your blood pressure, which that's healthy, but I want to be fit. I want to be like 110/70, which means I'm beyond that point. Like, it means that if I get sick, I don't get nearly as sick if I'm healthy. But if I'm fit, I typically just don't get sick. There's a reason why you want to get to that level. And I think this helps you get there. It's not a panacea, which a lot of people want to look at these different things. It's a catalyst for a specific lifestyle that gets you where you're pushed, and the whole in motion start part of it.
Sorry to cut you off.
Yes.
What products are you taking? Like, what's your Xendurance sort of like product protocol?
Okay, so I'm taking the Extreme Endurance. I'm taking the Focus. I'm taking the Immune. And I just ordered the collagen St. Greens, because I've never taken collagen, and I've always taken greens, so I'm switching out and taking both of those. I haven't done it yet, but I'm really looking forward to doing that because I think that's a huge part of it. And then I took, I've never taken it, but after doing all the typical research that I would do, reviewing and looking at different chemicals and what impact they have and why you guys have chosen, as Extreme Endurance is to choose that, hey, we're going to go after these products and this is why we're doing it. So I did a little bit of research on it. So I ordered the creatine. I haven't started taking it yet, but I'm looking forward to that. When you're 61, you're like, okay, what advantage could I make for myself? I've tried to live a good life. I always tell people that, they say, well, how do you stay so young? I said, well, I sleep in formaldehyde, if you know what that is. But it's more like just living a healthy lifestyle. It's more making sure you get the right sleep, and which is exciting too because the company just Xendurance just came out with a sleep aid, and I have umpteen years. At one point, I owned 14 sleep disorder clinics, so I know sleep extremely well. I worked for the Upjohn company, which is no longer in existence, that launched Xanax. It launched Halcyon. I was working with Jan Fawcett, head of psychiatry at Rush Luke's Presbyterian in Chicago. Before sleep became a big deal. I mean, people don't realize that sleep medicine is a relatively new area of medicine. It's almost like MRI or PET scan imaging, which is relatively new as well, in a whole scope of medicine. So, I was really, really excited about looking what that product did and, talking to other individuals. The one thing that I think Extreme Endurance did for me is I noticed that there's a lot more REM.
The deep sleep.
The deep sleep.
Deep sleep, okay.
Yeah. The deep sleep.
So talk about the deep sleep and how it's affected you. So,
being involved with sleep medicine for 20 years, really more than that, probably really since the inception. I started in healthcare in 1979 in Chicago. So I've been involved with it, and way back when with all the pressure support things that are out there. Like you hear people on TV talk about CPAP and BiPAP and oral devices by the dental community trying to affect patients that have upper airway resistance or have obstructive sleep apnea or central apnea, which is basically, central apnea is what the brain says, you're okay.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about sleep. You can stop breathing. You have enough oxygen. So so I've been involved with that forever, and a lot of the problems with the different medications that are on the marketplace, and there's some good things, but typical of those medications is that they have a long half-life. So, like for instance, one of the big drugs for years was Dowmain. The half-life on Dowmain, so the metabolites, was 200 hours. So for those of doing the math in their heads right now, that's 9 hours. Active drug. So if you think about it, if you take that every day, you get blood drug buildup. So you don't really ever dissociate with it. So if you're having a struggle or whatever the case may be with sleep, you're on it. So it's dissociated from the initial time the reason why you take it. So the next day, from a performance perspective, depending on the individual, the drug clearance, renal functioning, hepatic functioning, metabolism, you really struggle with those medications. Even though a lot of the over-the-counter stuff, like NyQuil or Nytol or ZQuil, those drugs, when you wake up in the morning, you're like, okay, I'm lethargic as can be. So, and then they also affect staging, just like alcohol affects staging. Some of the heart medications affect staging. So you really want to get quality deep sleep, which means you want to get into REM. You want as much REM as you possibly can. Usually it's in quarters, 25, 25, 25. So, and it really depends on the individual. The cornerstone for really sleep has always been, the first thing is to look at, they call sleep hygiene, which is the environment you're sleeping in. But once you affect that, what can you really truly do? And one of those ways is to look at the different products that are available in the market. And I know the big thing was CBD oil and those types of things. I haven't seen enough research to support that, but some of the things that this deep sleep, adding was it
Valerian root?
valerian root, and then some melatonin, because melatonin's been like the over-the-counter mainstay, but typically almost all these medications or preps that have melatonin, there's too much melatonin. You don't need a lot. Your body won't use it anyway. So I decided, okay, well, having taken multiple products in the past just for evaluation, I said, I'm going to take this. And when I did, it was like, boom. Like, I just went to sleep. You know, probably in about 20 minutes, I was like, okay. And I really wasn't that tired when I took it. I just really wanted to see what effect I would have. So it put me asleep. But I think the big thing for me was the next morning, because that's always the one area where a lot of people don't like to take sleep medications, or if they do take them, they take them as now it's 1 a.m. I can't sleep, so I'm gonna take a sleep med. So I took it relatively late. I want to say probably 11 o'clock at night, and then I woke up, and I wake up early, and as I was saying earlier, nothing. I didn't feel any of that. And here's the other really big part of it. I don't ever use an alarm, which is kind of crazy. People go, you get up at 3:30 and you don't use an alarm? I go, no, I don't use an alarm. I mean, usually I'm up before that alarm even goes off. I had to use an alarm. If I hadn't had an alarm, I wouldn't have got up when I did. So I was in a deep sleep, which is promising. I don't mind using an alarm if I have to, for the right reasons. So if I'm getting really good high quality sleep, because REM sleep is restful sleep. That's when I tell people there's a reason why sleep, and I've been in medicine long enough, it was never a consideration. There was always diet and exercise. They never, ever talked about sleep. Never. The only reason why you ever talked about sleep is if you couldn't sleep. Everything's centered around insomnia, situational, transitional anxiety for life events, divorce, death, sickness, job change. It was never about, why do you need sleep? No one ever talked about it. So when you're talking to athletes, and certainly being an ex-athlete and being around athletes all the time through my kids, I always talk about sleep. Because when you're talking about training and peaking for competitions, or you have an event coming up that you want to be at your best, then you better be looking at sleep as well. And a lot of people don't do that. They don't consider it. It's not a consideration. And now what's happening in the industry is, because of the diagnostic side of things kind of go into the home environment, that's kind of scary for me. Scary for me because it should be tied to other things like performance, like exercise, like diet. These are not pressure support, CPAP, and BioLevel. Don't fix anything. They just are addressing an issue. And I think for a lot of athletes and a lot of people in general, the one thing about sleep, I always tell people that poor sleep, just like if you're diabetic or hypertensive, there's a reason why you don't have to worry about taking pain medication, because you're reminded that you're in pain. But if you're diabetic and you're hypertensive, you're not reminded. It's rare that anybody's able to determine, through their feelings, how they feel that they have high blood pressures. Thousands of people, millions, that are running around that are diabetic, they're hypertensive. They have no idea they are. Until you measure it, you don't know that. So I say measure things, and then certainly that's the nice part about what's happened with XD. They've measured a lot of different things, so we know that it works. But also you're feeling it. That's the hard part about it. So that ability to affect what we do with product that's backed by numbers, certainly from being a science-related guy, I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think, like I said, you can feel a specific way, and that's great. And really that helps exacerbate the utilization that you're going to use it because you feel good. I will tell you there have been a couple times when I didn't use it. I tell recently, like the last couple months, I got kidney stones.
Oh boy.
Yeah, which trust me, it's the worst pain on the planet. I've broken bones. I've had, I was saying earlier, I crashed. I got hit by a car.
Yeah.
I've broken my my elbow and knee, and I've had knee everything. Yeah, that's so extremely painful. So I got away. I mean, I couldn't work out. I was in so much pain. I certainly wasn't taking anything. So I didn't take the extreme endurance or anything to kind of like stayed up for a while, and I felt that I hadn't. So then when I got back on it again, I'm like, okay, whew, you feel it.
Yeah.
And certainly from a workout standpoint, it's impactful as can be. And like I said, when I took the focus and obviously after being at the meeting where learn more of the science side of it, it really kind of cleared a lot of things that in my head. I'm like, well, why is this doing what it's doing? There's got to be a reason why, because there's got to be some science behind it. And I'm the guy that I'm not a black box guy, which means I don't just want to plug something in and see something print out the other side and, oh wow, it works. I want to know what goes on that black box. So when I don't get the results I think I should on the other side, I know why. Something's happened, because this is what it should be doing. The best part about this whole process, because now I'm like, I know why this works the way it does, and I understand why it has this impact, like the VO2 max. Because as a runner and a cyclist, it was everything about VO2 max. I mean,
Right.
You were always interested in the ability to
What's your VO2 was?
what's your VO2 max. So I'd be curious as it relates to myself, and at some point in the future I'd like to do one of those, to do a study and see what impact it does have. But
We'll
yeah.
have to get off all the products and come down, and we'll have Anna doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would love to see what that does. I'd love to see it do it, for a lot of different different types of athletes, because I see what they do. My son's a wrestler, so their training is crazy.
Yeah.
And you talk about recovery. Certainly, like when you get into the championship seasons, you go through the NCAAs and national championships. You're wrestling a lot, and you're cutting your weight.
Yep.
And you need to be at the. It's almost like a survival for a lot of guys. You see a guy who ends up being a champion. It's like going, was it more that he was just able to recover better?
Yeah, he survived it.
He survived it versus maybe this guy was injured coming into it, or what his training was a little different and he didn't really recover.
So that's what I say too, and for athletes, and for your son too, and for yourself. It's it's the cumulative effect of taking all these products in a structured training periodization plan. That when you get to the end of that plan, is the cumulative effect is what's so great, right?
Yes.
So it's not this. I'm going to take focus today. It's going to help me out today. I'm going to take creatine today. It's going to help me out today. It's being able to train 2%, 3% harder over the course of that periodized training plan. Get to the end, you have this mountain of improvement that
Right.
you're playing off of, right?
Yeah.
Especially with some of our track athletes too. When we talk about creatine specifically, it's being able to do plyos better. It's being able to get in the weight room and lift more weight. Being able to squeeze out 1 or 2 more reps over the course of 6 months. Those 1 to 2 reps start adding up.
Right.
And that's more work. This is like the Kobe Bryant thing too. It's like,
Right.
if you can put in just a little bit more time,
Right.
that time spent then at the end of the training season is much more than your competitors are doing, right?
Yeah.
So if you can find these little tweaks and you can find these little ways to be better, that's what we feel at Xendurance. That's what we want people to do, right?
Right.
To just don't take it for a day. Don't do it over the long course, right?
I think that's part of my process and how I view extreme endurance from a standpoint of helping to develop it and bringing it to individuals that either one like myself that are past that. I'm not out to prove anything. I'm out to be healthy, and more so than just to be fit. I want to be fit. Because You hear a lot of people like want to, they get involved in competitions and things along those lines, and like, okay, well, you need to have goals, but the goals for me are more, fit oriented. They're not like, hey, I'm going to go run, I want to run, 3.5 hours for a marathon. But there are people who are like that, but, it's a process. So one of the things I kept thinking about is, okay, how would I present this to somebody who's like, okay, and my thing would be, give me 90 days. Let's do a baseline and give me 90 days of like really implementing a specific regimen, and that includes, you're going to have to do some fitness, you're going to have to eat right, you're going to have to sleep well. So we're going to incorporate these catalyst products that are all natural, to help you with this plan. And if we can do this and you can measure it, it's all about measuring things. If you don't measure it, then you don't really know. It's still really a classic case of, like, I have a twin brother. My twin brothers, we're very opposite, but my twin brother struggled with his weight, but he's, some people are just too hard-headed, and you're like, okay, listen, am I not a testament that it works, and you sit back and say, just give me the time. And sometimes extreme changes calls for extreme measures. They do, but this is an extreme. This is an extreme move. This is just a very lifestyle-driven process over the course of 90 days. There's no magic pill in life.
Right.
That's not what this is.
Yeah.
This is about making the subtle changes that, of course, the best analogy I would have, that I probably use this in my entire life in dealing in medicine, and I did a lot in rehab. Dealing with rehab patients, meaning those patients that were impaired some way, either it's spina bifida or MS or ALS or car accident, stroke, whatever. And you talk to PTs. And I used to get frustrated because I have a PT talking to a patient and go, well, we're going to get you, we're going to get you back. I'm like, okay, no, we're going to get you back at close to 100% based on your limitations. You have limitations because you have a disease or you've had an accident, but I'm going to make you as close to 100% functional of your impairment you could possibly get. That's my goal. You're not going to be normal. I, as a 61-year-old, am not going to run, as I told you, a 403 mile. I was 19. My body's not going to go that fast anymore. But I can be extremely healthy and fit at 61, where literally when I can go out landscape all day long. I played 4 hours of golf in 117-degree Arizona weather. I feel great right now. And I can tell you, my brother, who's 3 years younger than me, he's back at his house and he's struggling, going, shh, where's that hydro gel stuff that you guys sell? So, you just have to apply that type of process. But as I said earlier, my most relatable analogy is every kid, every person, whoever went to school, specifically like when you were in a math or science class, more so in math, and you get your book and you're looking at the first couple pages. Oh, we did that last year. But then you make the mistake of opening up to like the last chapters, and especially if you've taken like algebra or calculus, and you're looking at it, open up, and there's like a formula that's like 4 paragraphs long, and you're like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. But come May, you're taking a final, and those questions are on the test, and you're doing that test. It's no different. You can't look at the end result. It's a process. Life's a process. Everything's a process. If you keep that in mind, you'll do well in it. It's just like this product. I deal a lot nationwide and in Europe with sleep specialists, sleep technicians, which, you couldn't ask for a better audience for focus. because they're I tell the people they're the ultimate gamers. Like they are sitting in a dark room with monitors, and they're literally looking at tracings. It's not like they're not killing aliens.
Yeah.
Well, unless you call sleep impairment an alien, but I guess you
Right.
could. But I mean, like, you're looking at tracings. You're like anywhere from 15 to 28, 35 different tracings, monitoring all EEG, EMG, oxygen levels, whatever position, and you're going, okay, can you imagine that all night long? It's not fun. So if you think about focus, and then you think about the fact that they deal with people with sleep issues, and certainly including themselves, they sleep during the day, so you need the acuity as relates to the focus for them to be able to perform their jobs, and then you look at them from a standpoint of like, well, I sleep during the day. I need some kind of something that doesn't impair them,
Right.
because that's the other big thing. I want to sleep, but I need an aid to get me into the sleep, deep sleep, deep areas of sleep. But I'm going to work again tonight, so I don't want to be walking into work going, okay, I can barely tie my shoes, let alone sit there and set up somebody on a system. So it has that side of it, but I'm kind of excited to see what kind of impact that's going to have and how people view that. So that's one of my goals, is to see how that deep sleep affects. So I'll do a lot of sampling and talking to some of the higher level guys I know out there that are they're science geeks, and say, okay, what do you think about this? Here's the science behind it. Now I want you to view that. And the whole focus today is in medicine. Sleep medicine is a lot of home sleep-based sleep studies. So there's a lot of individuals that would be an easy way to, like, okay, we're going to show where this is effective and how this helps those individuals. I can just tell from personal experience that it works.
Right.
I'm like, okay, science is there. I've tried it. It works. So you can't ask for anything better. You can't ask for anything more than that. It validates the science that I'm reading, where I'm actually using it. And I can say that some people, I'm one of those, that anything that anything that interacts with the central nervous system, I gotta be, I'm a wimp. My central nervous system's a wimp in the sense that it gets affected. Like, so when I was 15, some guy decided, I was getting ready to go to indoor. I was living in Iowa, going to high school in Iowa, and I was coming out of a classroom, and we had indoor track. So I went, and our indoor track at that time we were in the basement of the junior high, and it was dirt. And it had incandescent bulbs, and you had these big pillars, and it was literally, I think it was like maybe 90 meters.
That's amazing.
So we're running in a musty, I think about it now, I'm like, why didn't I have lung issues? Not from running, but just from the mold in the bottom of this basement. And the wrestling room was there too, like put mats on dirt. So it's in Clinton, Iowa, and we're running down, and literally you'd run 90 meters, and then you went around this big, huge, support columns supporting this big, huge junior high, and then turn and run. That's how we ran our laps. You were running miles, and you'd run, 800 meters, 400 meters underground. But anyway, I was coming out of a class, and a guy trips me, and when he trips me, I do a compound fracture of my elbow, and the bone went through, and yeah, that was painful.
Wow.
Very, very painful. So I had to have surgery. I had pens put in my arm, and when I did the surgery, I woke up, and it was dark out. And because I remember looking out the window, I'm like, why is it dark out? And my face was just hurt really, really bad. And I remember when I broke it,
Yeah.
and I fell, and I was sitting there, I was talking to the assistant principal, and my brother, I have an older brother who's 2 older than me, he was at the same high school, came and said, you're right, and I had blood. I'm like, I'm in so much pain. And, but I guess, whenever they did the dosing, and I was a runner, on top of it, that they overshot the mark. So I was sort of woken up like at 9 a.m. and it was like 8:30 at night by the time I finally woke up. So I've heard that redheads, I haven't seen the science, but specifically we're real sensitive to things like that. So, when I first tried Halcyon, which is a set of hypnotics, intermediate. It's not a short acting like there's some out there that are chemically like that, but Halcyon was like an intermediate, so the half-life was a little bit longer. It came in 0.125, 0.25, and 0.5, and I took half of a 0.125, and I was late for the meeting next day. I was so groggy, and I had retrograde amnesia, so I basically don't remember anything that happened the day before, like nothing. Normally you have a little bit of that. If you're really super tired, you take it doesn't really matter what it is. You have a little bit of retrograde amnesia. I don't remember, did I turn the coffee pot off kind of thing? Or, is the stove still on? Right before you go to bed, you don't remember anything. Where did I put my keys? But I'm talking about a whole day. So that's like not a good thing. So I had none of that with deep sleep either. I mean, I remember exactly, taking it and laying it down, And then Anna took it. She said the same thing. Because she's a teacher, but she's also a night owl. I'm not a night owl. So if you wake up 3:30 in the morning, you're not a night owl. So I took it and she took it, and I always tell her, you need to go to sleep. So she's up. She's a researcher. It's kind of research. She loves researching everything to the nth degree. I'm sure she's right now grilling Sandy right now about anything and everything. She was probably asking like 50 questions about the product. Because that's just her nature, science teacher. But she took it, and same thing. Normally she gets real groggy. She's a really difficult morning person. Well, when you stay up till midnight doing research, you're not really all that gung-ho at 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning. And so I told her, I said, I really want you to do take the deep sleep and let me know how you feel. And the next morning we're like, I feel great. No, actually we went to the
summit.
It was the day after the leadership, and I went. She's like, I said, how do you feel? And she goes, I feel great. And I was a little. It's rare you sit a whole day long in a meeting, like the summit. In my career you did a lot. You'd be at a conference in New York for 3 days, and for 3 days you're like. Okay, how much more can I learn in this process? Isn't there like a break we did? So it'd been a while since I'd gone through that, and so I was really a little leery after the summit meeting, which was awesome because there's some phenomenal people that have great energy, and you watch what it can do, and you listen to some of the science. You're like, okay, this is really cool. If you've been in this arena for as long as I have, as a runner, you probably did the same thing. You're like, wow, this is really cool. Like even at the meeting, I after the meeting, I called a friend of mine back east that is a power lifter, and I said, let me ask you a question. Do you know anything, have you ever heard of anything that increases VO2 max? He's like, no. I go, no kidding. I said, what this stuff does. And he's like, no, you're kidding. Oh, no, it does. So related to the story, I talked to him. He's just moved back to the area. Because when you get back, I need to talk to you. So I said, yeah, let's meet up. I said, because I'm telling you, it's made a huge difference. And Anna's lost like 30 some odd pounds, something like that. And like I said, she's a badass on a bike. Yeah. I mean, I don't even necessarily always like to ride with her because she's in the lead and she's pushing the envelope. She's like just pushing. I go, we have a leisure ride today because I'm tired. I'm like, I'm feeling that. I mean, I don't want to say that now because we haven't been able to ride because of the weather and because we've been working. And certainly COVID had a huge impact on that because, we live in Illinois, and Illinois is been a little strict as it relates to the COVID situation. So we weren't able to ride. But, she'll push the envelope. She'll keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And I'm like, okay, I hate to even see what's going to happen riding with her now. Yeah. Because she's lost all that weight, and she was a strong rider beforehand, and
her power to weight ratio.
Yeah.
Go up.
I'm a spender. I spend a lot. I'm not the guy who's going to go push some big heavy meat. I can. I just, probably I don't, to your point earlier about the product, I probably never did because lactic acid would build up.
Right.
and you just go, okay, so I just pushed, real heavy gears, they used to call big meat, and I'm like, now I'm dead. My legs are just totally dead. I'd be curious to see how that impacts. We had a race coming up called the Donut Run, or the Donut Ride, where it's like a 37 miler, but you eat donuts and you get, I never eat the donuts, I just do the ride and race the ride, but some people, you get so many minutes off for how many donuts you
wow.
eat, which is never a good thing, because literally every time I've ever been there, somebody's ended up throwing up because they think, I'm going to eat like 12 donuts, I'm going to get like a 20-minute reduction in my time, and I'm like, no, that's not me. It's fun because you see all the comedy that's related to it,
right.
but I'm more a serious rider as it relates to that, which I'm kind of curious because I rode it 2 years ago, and I finished, I was like second in my A division, so I was a 37 miler, and I rode it like 151, so I'm kind of curious to see what I can do, because it's pretty hilly.
Oh yeah, you're going to be better.
Yeah. Oh, I have no doubt that I'll be better. I mean, I can just tell. Like I said, I can push gears, a little bit higher gear, and still keep my RPMs up. And I don't have the lactic acid buildup.
Right.
I don't feel it the next day. That's a really weird thing for an athlete who's either run or cycled. You totally expect to have that fatigue in your legs, and when you don't have it, you're like, okay, now I can train the next day a little bit higher level, to your point, where you're not, those 5 or 10% increases on the post days of that your hard days. It's reminiscent when I was in college, because we used to run hill climbs. We'd run half-mile repeats in this little park, and there'd be probably 30 of us, and it was a big group. We all go in a group, and where I went to college was, they were well known for running as a pack. So it was all about getting everybody out in the first mile and then running together, and keeping the spread between the first and seventh runner, within 30, 40 seconds, which is paid off because it's been really successful. But the next day we'd run hill climbs, and we were in hill climbs at the ski resort, and I remember, like, that would really hurt. Not the next day, but on Wednesday. So we'd run half-mile repeats, and we'd do hill climbs, and then we'd have a quasi easy run on Wednesdays. And I remember just those easy runs were never easy because there was nothing we were doing to recover.
Right.
We were just like, okay, who can survive? Who literally just physiologically was able to recover? Right. There were no products. There was nothing, Everybody, you did everything. I remember drinking drinking coffee 45 minutes before we ran, because one of the clowns on the team had read Runner's World study on caffeine fatty acid burning. So let's do 45 minutes, and which, as you probably can well imagine as a runner, that there's nothing worse than burping coffee when you're running like 435 miles, and you're like, oh, getting heartburn. Right. So and that was before the good coffee was ever around. Right. You drink like Solo Folgers or Maxwell House or or Sanka.
Well, I think we're good. I just want to get your full name and credentials, and man, we got a lot of really good stuff. So yeah. Okay. So just your full name, credentials, and kind of history, like professional history, I guess.
Oh, okay. So my name's Keith Martin. I'm from the St. Louis area, although I've worked literally all over the country. My background is I'm a chemist by trade, and I've been in diagnostic medicine for a number of years. Worked in pharmaceuticals for a number of years, and probably the last 25 years, I've really focused on sleep medicine. I've worked with some of the best-known sleep specialists in the world. Worked with sleep products, sleep treatment, sleep pressure support, which would be CPAP and bi-level. And I was an athlete, early on in my life. I started running out before running was ever the thing. I was a nationally ranked runner. I held all kinds of records back when I was 12 or 13 years old. I've run on I was on the World Corporate Championship team way back in the day, running at Stanford. I ran cross country and track for a college in Chicago called North Central College, which they're a big powerhouse. I call them the giant killers of the running arena. They've won 19 national titles now, and that's kind of how I, got into medicine, and everything is tied to that. It was my running career, and everybody in that whole arena comes from that pathway. But I'm one of 7 kids, so one of 7 kids. My mother and father come from huge families, 14 and 10. So I have lots of first cousins, but I come from a family of runners. I was the oddball because I got into cycling, got a mixed martial arts. I did all kinds of stuff. I was always pushing the envelope. And so my entire family has been in medicine as well. So we've been in the treatment side of taking care of patients and working with all different types of patients throughout our entire professional careers. Right now I'm working with a company that does chronic care medicine, working with Medicare patients that have chronic disease, helping them through the process because they're such a non-compliant population. Their compliance is like 4%, which is kind of a crazy number. So they're trying to affect change in that arena, which is my big thing. My favorite thing in the world to do as a person is to mentor. I love mentoring and helping people get to where they want to be, but also challenging them to go, where is that? Where do you want to be? Because once you know that, then you can start moving in that direction. So I've started companies, been successful in that arena. I had a diagnostic company for 21 years doing sleep medicine, but that industry is changing. A lot of that's going by the wayside because, as anybody who's in medicine knows, it's line economics. If there's an increase in a line of reimbursement in any area in Medicare is going, how can we pay less? And this is kind of what's, having that background and having a background in pharmacology, I struggle with the fact that we don't try and teach and train people, we just try and fix them.
Right.
And that's the exciting part about being involved in performance. That's the exciting part about Xendurance. It's about, we're here to make you fit. You can't ask for a better way to be. You can't ask for a better opportunity than that. And I think I said this before to somebody. I said, here's the thing. I said, Xendurance has basically a business. They have a business platform. You have a pro forma available. You have a business plan. And the question is, how are you going to implement it? As an individual who wants to be involved, it's how you implement it. Me, I come from a healthcare background, athletic background, so there's all kinds of opportunities from my perspective to be able to affect that change. But I think the other thing is that there's been this ongoing thing. There's like negative connotations with multi-level marketing. There is.
Yeah.
So how do you
well aware.
Yeah, sure. You guys have that background, so you know that. But my thing is this: I can tell you, when you look at healthcare and you look at how many of us, if you look at like insurance, you tell me, would it be advantageous for the health insurance industry to have a building in the middle of a cornfield in Iowa? Because that'd be more cost effective, wouldn't it? Why does it need to be in the most expensive area? Wherever, because you're talking about people with high school education that are doing billing, doing claims, all those things. This is not like you went and got your PhD. So that's expensive. You and I both incur if you're paying for a health insurance plan. And the same thing with a lot of areas of medicine. It's like it doesn't make any sense, but as long as you can get away with it, you keep doing it. So I I struggle with that aspect of it.
Right.
You know, I don't get it, don't understand it. So if you really can't make any money at it, they're not really interested in it. So that's the hard part about this.
Yeah.
You know, in health and in all aspects of business, when you're buying product, you're paying either a professional athlete a tremendous amount of money for that product because the company has to pay him to tell you how good it is.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he was already at the peak, he's like genetically there already. I'm like, I'm not interested in that guy because he's won. He's won whatever, you know. In the whole history of wrestling, which I'm very tied to because of my kids, there's only been one person ever that's ever gone through high school and college to ever be undefeated, Cable Sanderson, from Iowa State. Okay? How many wrestlers have wrestled over the years and years and years? So he sits out there. He's at one and then whatever. It's the same thing with most of what we do. There's a one of, you're like, it's such a small percentage, and that doesn't make any sense. So when I looked at this product, the whole, looking at Xendurance, I said, okay, they're not the supplement superstore based out of the Midwest that has all these guys running around wearing t-shirts like they own Harley Davidson. You ever seen Harley Davidson? They make all their money off, not the bikes, but the t-shirts.
Right.
So you have a ton of people walking around with Supplement Superstore t-shirts on that I'm like, do you have a gym membership? I hate to say it, but do you have a gym membership? Because it's just building a culture like, well, you know, hey, I buy my stuff from there. But you know, are you really involved and you're really doing the right things in order to get healthy?
Right.
So you're paying for the bricks and mortar. This, somebody to have a store and pay for the electric bill and pay for all their advertising on TV and everything else, do that. I don't see the hard part of this. I don't see the hard part about talking about multi. I mean, this makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Because you used to buy your eggs that way. Remember, you used to buy your pigs and your cows that way. Oh, but that's 200 years ago. Sometimes evolution's not a good thing. It's just like the internet. The internet has the good and the bad. The good is you and I are talking. That's how we met. And you're going to probably broadcast this on the internet and through the social media of the companies, and which makes sense. That's a good part about it. But then you have the other bad part. It's the same thing with this.
Right.
There's always abuse of everything. You can abuse water, you can abuse food, you can abuse alcohol. Does that say that because you're abusing alcohol that a good bottle of wine's not a good thing? That's a very, very one-sided evaluation of what's really a good thing.
Right.
And if you don't sit back and look at all the good side of it, I mean, I know bad press sells, but there's a lot of good things out there. I say that I saw repeatedly the risk reward in a lot of different things, certainly in the pharmaceutical industry, the whole vaccination thing. There's enough proof and evidence to support that you're going to have people that will react negatively and or have issues, and we can address those in healthcare, but the overwhelming upside literally crushes what you're doing. And I would fight anybody to, and I'm pretty tenacious, so I'm ready to go toe to toe with anybody. I'm like, oh really? Do you really think that you need to go to the superstore to have somebody who's got he's getting paid, whether he sells your product or not, but you got to promo that month? Like, oh, we got a really good deal on, these greens that, where are they from? China.
Right.
I'm a purist, so I want to hear somebody. I've heard you, I've heard other people talk about the products. I've seen the products. I've taken the products. I'm talking to people who take the products. I'm like, that's what I want to see.
Right.
I don't need somebody who's 22 years old and who's working out in the gym because he's still at mom and dad's house, and he looks good because he's 22. I want somebody like me who's 60 and goes, yeah, I've been doing these for years, and this has been my life story, and this is what I did, and look where I am today, and look at the changes I made, and this is, my life experiences teaches me that. And that's not to say that there aren't kids that are 22, 23 who are not intelligent, articulate, and know their stuff. But I go with the odds.
Yeah.
I'll go with the odds.